Hi there, this is Heather of Shutterbug 101. She'll be going over the Canon R6 body, very similar to the R5, and the kit lens, the 24-105 f4 to 7.1. Let's get started. The Canon R6 and the Canon R5 are the newest additions to the Canon mirrorless line. With similar body types and menus, this walkthrough video will help you if you have either model. However, the sample footage you are seeing here is with the Canon R6, which was awarded Camera of the Year 2020 by DP Review. The R6 is a 20 megapixel full-frame camera that shoots 4K video up to 60 frames, digital SD card slots with UHS 2 compatibility, and is perfect for the all-around shooter that wants a camera that excels in low light. The R5 is a 45 megapixel full-frame camera that shoots up to 8K video at 30 frames, a CF Express card slot alongside a UHS 2 SD card slot, and is built for the pros to capture high resolution in any situation. Both cameras have 1,053 focus points, fully articulating touch LCD screens, a continuous drive of 20 frames per second, have mic and headphone ports, and are environmentally sealed. Today we will be discussing the doors, buttons, and menus to help you navigate these cameras a little easier. So today we're going over a walkthrough of the Canon R6. The bodies of the R6 and the R5 are going to be the same, or extremely similar anyway. And the reason that I picked the R6 over the R5 was because this camera was awarded Camera of the Year for 2020. So I really wanted to test it out and see what comes out of it. I decided to use the kit lens rather than another lens. So this lens is the one that comes with it. It's a nice compact lens, 24-105, so a great walk around. The aperture availability is a 4 to 7.1, so it is something to keep in mind. And it is nice because it has this control ring option here. What I did find a little irritating with this is that typically one of these switches here is manual focus to autofocus. What this has instead is you can either choose the function for this ring here as to control the focus, or to use as a control ring, which you would program that in camera in the menu itself. And then the other one here, of course, is to turn the stabilization on or off. Now this is what you would do in a situation where you're using it on a tripod. You would typically turn that stabilizer off because naturally something else is stabilizing the camera. Otherwise, if you're doing a lot of hand holding, you would definitely want to keep that on. But as you can see, there's no manual focus autofocus switch, which I was kind of bummed about with this lens. So it is something that you do have to change in the camera itself, which for me seems like a little bit of a hassle. But there are some custom buttons on this camera that are programmable, so there should be ways to customize this camera to your needs. On the front of the camera here, you can see that we do have our release button for the release of the lens. You'll also see that rather than on other mirrorless cameras, when you open the lens up, you typically see the sensor right away. You can see here that instead we see these shutters. The shutters are there to help protect it when you are changing the lens. Now, it doesn't mean just leave it out like this all the time. I'm in a controlled environment currently, which is why I can do that. But if you're outdoors, don't set it on a rock while you go and look for your other lens. You know, that can still get dirty. It's just providing it a little bit more protection than you would typically see in other models. So this button down here is actually going to be your lock button. So if you want to lock in your settings or lock in your focus or whatever you want to do, you're just going to come down here and hit this. Now, my hands are rather small, so it's a little bit more difficult for me to hit that button. So it's probably not something I would use, but for someone where that is comfortable, they may find it very helpful. You'll see here on the handle, we do have this spot here. This is our infrared sensor if we wanted to use an infrared remote. So that is what that is for. We do have our LED light up here at the top. That's our focusing assist light. What this is for is it'll shine out a light in case it meets taking pictures of something that's lacking detail or if it's too dark, to help it assist autofocus in the lens. Going to the side of the camera here, on the R6, you can see that in this door here, we do have two SD card slots. Both are UHS 2 approved, which essentially means that when you take this card out, you're going to see that it has two sets of contacts on the back versus the one that you've been used to in past SD card slots. It means you're getting twice as fast, nice and speedy. It's going to be able to handle that 4K video or 20 frames continuous drive if you're shooting action. In the R5, instead of two SD card slots, you get one of those SD card slots and a CF Express card. These cards are new and they're upcoming, so you'll see them in future models of different cameras. More like a cartridge, but it's going to be more archival and even faster than the UHS 2 cards. So it'll definitely be able to keep up with that 8K video in that camera, which I think is just insane. On this side of the camera here, you can see that we have a couple doors here. So underneath this set of doors, you can see that we do have our remote control port here for our shutter release, for a wired shutter release there. Under this door here, you can see that we have our mic and headphone port as said on the door itself, which is really nice. Under this door is where we're going to find our USB and our HDMI cable. So you can see that it has a HDMI that you can hook up to an external monitor, to a television screen, a computer screen, whatever you need to do. And then we have our USB port here, which is USB-C. So not only will this give us a faster transfer rate when it comes to transferring images or doing firmware updates or whatever we need through that, but it's also going to allow us to charge the battery, I believe. It's going to provide power to this camera, which it's like, hey, it's about time, right? At least that is what I am hearing currently. And then on the bottom of the camera here, on the bottom of the camera, you can see that we have our universal screw mount for tripod. This is going to allow us to mount it to our tripod or anything else. And then we have our battery door here. Underneath our battery door, we do have our battery here, of course, where we're going to see on the door itself the direction to put the battery in. And then going to the top of the camera here. So going to the top of the camera, you can see we have our on and off switch here over to the left. We do have a hot shoe available here, which is also used as a cold shoe in case you need something to mount your mic on. This is also going to be used for flash, so if you want to use an external flash, as this does not have a pop-up flash available. They did develop a new flash recently that I've only had a chance of getting a look at through the Canon rep. They're not available in stores yet. We're expecting them early 2021. But these new speed lights coming out from Canon are amazing, and they keep up with the 20 frames per second burst mode. It has an amazing recycle mode, not to mention has an LED modeling light, so keep an eye out for those guys. They are going to be pricey, but gosh, it's going to be worth the money if you're going to be using your flash for events or portraiture. We do have our mode dial here, which does give us an automatic option. So when you're first learning this camera, if you're just getting into it and you're wanting to future-proof yourself a little bit, you know, so you wanted to get something a little bit more advanced for you, which is probably why you're watching this video, or you just need to know the difference from going from your DSLR to a mirrorless option. Automatic is just going to allow the camera to do all the thinking for you. It's going to choose all your settings for you, all the situations, and change it accordingly. This is going to be a great mode to use when you're learning your camera and learning how the overlay is different from what you're used to, or if you've shot at all. So the FV mode here is going to be your flexible value mode. This is going to be very similar to your program mode. It's going to be pretty exclusive to the Canon brand. This, unlike your program mode, which is typically what I would recommend going into right after getting used to your camera with the auto mode, allows you to toggle between like shutter speeds and apertures, your exposure compensation, while the P mode allows you to do just the shutter speed, just the aperture, where you kind of have to focus on one. It's more like program meets manual versus just program. So that's going to be kind of preference. Personally, I like sticking to the original modes here, the P, TV, AV, and M, but the flexible value mode does sound really neat, especially using your learning tools. So you know, whether you want to jump into FV or P mode first, totally up to you. I might do a video on the FV mode if there's enough demand for it. If you are interested in seeing us go through the FV mode primarily and what it all covers, let me know in the comments below and I'll add it to my list. There's the TV mode, which is time value. It's going to control the shutter speed. You're going to utilize this mode here when it comes to capturing motion or showing motion. You have your AV mode, which is aperture value. This is going to allow you to primarily adjust the aperture on the lens, make it wider or smaller. So the wider the aperture, the blurrier the background. So as you can see, my fingers in this shot are fairly blurry in comparison to the top of the camera here. That just means I'm using a wider aperture rating. But it'll also control how much light you let in. So in a situation where you're shooting in low light, you may want to widen up your aperture. You do have your manual mode, which you control everything and anything. So you need to understand your shutter speed, your aperture, your ISO, and how all of those interrelate and what changes what, and how you'll use them to accomplish your goals. You have your B mode, which is bulb. This is for long exposure photography. So if you're doing any sort of Milky Way shots or something like that, it's typically what you would use bulb for. We have your custom modes here, C1, C2, and C3. These are all programmable in the menu itself. So say you're shooting in a studio setting and you want to save those settings that you've found to one of these modes, but then you want to go outside, maybe go for a walk, take your camera on a stroll, and then you come back to your studio situation. You can always just dial it right back into one of your custom modes that you saved. So they're little save modes, which is kind of nice. And then of course we have the video mode here. Now when it comes to your video mode, you don't need to be in this mode in order to do a video. You can actually be in auto, FV, TV, AV, and M, and all you have to do is push this red button. Once to start recording, again to stop recording. The only reason they really have this video mode here is if you want to change those nitty-gritty details in the menu specifically for video, and you know, get your mic level to show, that type of thing, so you'll be direct to that. But if you're in a bind or you're in a situation where you're like, oh, I need to get a quick video clip of this, but I don't want to go too far from my picture taking options, you just have that red button there. And it'll be the same record button in that video mode as well. We do have your shutter button up here. You push halfway down to focus, push all the way down to take a picture. The M function button here. So that button here is going to change all of these settings at the bottom here. So first you have your ISO, which is going to be changeable by this up here. I'm just keeping mine on auto and setting a limit to it in the menu. If you want to go to the next option here, you just use this back wheel. Then you use that same top adjustment here to change that. So this is your drive mode. This is going to allow you to, the first square is just one picture taken when you click and hold the shutter button down. You have the high burst mode, which is the 20 frames per second. Just regular burst mode where you can actually pick the number of frames you want per second if you don't want 20. And then you have your different timer and remote modes as well. The next one here is going to be our focusing mode. So you have one shot and you have servo. So one shot is going to allow the camera to focus in and lock on its focus for something that's a still subject. It's going to lock on focus and stay there for you to take the picture. Versus servo, which is going to be a continuous focus, which allows the camera to continually focus as the subject moves. So it really depends on what your subject's going to be. We have your white balance option here. So typically I would just keep it in auto white balance. The camera can typically choose what the proper lighting situation is, but in case you were taking pictures during a sunset where a camera is typically more orange, you can put it into like sunny, or you know, choose your own under Kelvin to add some more blue to it to counteract the orange and make it a true white color. Similar to just when the sun goes down, when colors are typically blue, you can add a little bit of orange, counteract that, and get true white still. So that's what that white balance is for. And then the last option here is really just going to control your flash and how strong you want that to be. Because we don't have a flash on here at the moment, we're not going to worry about that. We've already gone over the red record button here. We do have a lock button to lock in our stuff. Very different from the lock button on the front of the camera where you click and hold to lock. This is a lock to lock in the screen and buttons so you don't accidentally change anything. And then we have a rear adjust dial here, which is typically going to change our shutter speed or aperture. For the rest of the video, we're going to go ahead and stick into the P mode because that's actually going to allow us to see all of our menu items and all of our options. So if you're following along and you're like, well, for some reason my menu doesn't look like that, or I'm not seeing that option, make sure it's in your P mode. That way you can follow along there. Going to the back of the camera here, you see we have our rate button. Now you'll see that this is the color blue alongside the playback button and the trash can button. This means that you can really only use these buttons in the playback mode. So right now I don't have any images on the card, but if I did, I could use the blue trash can button to throw away pictures, or I could use the rate button to actually add a rating. So you can actually add a 1 to 5 star rating, how much you like it, how much your client likes it, so you can kind of look through and go, okay, we know we like this one, we know we don't like this one so much, but we're going to keep it just in case. And that way it can actually organize it in a way where it's from your favorites to they're okay. And of course your universal escape button on the majority of cameras is going to be your shutter button halfway down to get right back into shooting mode. We do have our menu button, which we're going to go ahead and cover last. We have our electronic viewfinder here. Right here is where the sensor is, so if we put our face in front of the sensor, it'll actually turn that viewfinder on. Then we take away our face and turns the screen back on here. And we do have this nice articulating screen, which is really great. Not to mention it is touchscreen. We do have our diopter here. This is going to be for adjusting this viewfinder to our eye, because if you're someone that wears glasses, naturally I don't wear glasses, so you may see a little different than I do. So you can adjust that so this is clear for you. We have our joystick, which is going to do a variety of things. It can move things around in the menu. You can move around your focus point if that's the setting that you have it on, whatever you'd like to do there. We have the autofocus button back here. So this is your back button focus. Typically, this is more commonly used on the Nikon cameras, but it's been in pretty high demand for the pros. So instead of using your shutter button necessarily, you can actually use this back button to focus where you want it to go and then take the picture with your shutter button. Now again, that's all going to be preference as the majority of settings on the camera, but just so you know what it is, you can test it out, see if it's something that you like to do better than just depending on the shutter button. Totally your call. We do have these two buttons here, which are going to allow us to, again, with this button, it's going to allow us to lock in, very similar to the front button. And then we have this button here, which is going to change our autofocus area. I have it set to faces since I'll be taking pictures of Heather later. We have our spot autofocus, you have 1 point autofocus, your expansion of area, so it's a little bit wider than the spot. Even more so, expand autofocus area around. You have your zone, you have your vertical zone, which is a larger area, and then your horizontal large zone as well. So you're just essentially going smaller and smaller to more specific areas, or just phaser tracking there. So it really depends on what you're taking pictures of and how big the area you want the priority of focus to be. We do have our magnifying glass here. You can magnify your screen when it's not in the tracking mode, just to make sure that what's in focus is in focus, that type of thing. This will also allow you to zoom in on pictures that you've taken to make, double check those and everything, and you can use the touch screen fully. We have your info button here, which is going to change how the screen is displayed. So you have like all the information, very similar to the DSLRs. We have this one right here, which is probably my favorite just because it's the more basic option. You have your battery level. We have how much time we can record at a time, which is of course the nearly 30-minute limit. We have how many pictures we can take, which on this card is 1,140 when it comes to raw pictures, which is what I currently have it set on now. We have access to the quick menu as well as we do here, which we'll go over here next. We have the touch shutter button, what your exposure is at and what your ISO is at, and that's it. Other ones have the level to make sure your camera's straight, has all the options that you would see on the quick menu here showing. It really just depends, again, on preference. You'll hear that word a lot. Going over the quick menu, which you can push this button or hit there on the screen, will give you, well, a quick menu, something that's going to give you very quick access to things that you would regularly change. So if we kind of go about this here, the first one here we've already gone over because it's also attached to this shortcut button, is your autofocus area. The next one here is your autofocus operation. That's going to be how you autofocus. That one shot for still, servo for moving, which we've also gone over from one of the shortcut buttons. We have your image quality, so we have it so you can set it to either card. I just have one card in there now, so it's going to be card slot 1, which I'm doing RAW. You can do RAW and JPEG, JPEG to one, RAW to the other, whatever you want to do. We have the drive mode, which again, we've already gone over due to the shortcut button up on top. Then we have your metering here. So we have, this is where it's taking the light from to find an overall balance of light. So you have evaluative, which is going to consider the entire screen and give you a well-balanced lit image, which doesn't always look the best. Typically, you'll use this for landscaping, wide images. The one at the end here is going to be your center weighted option. It's going to be center weighted, so it's going to take whatever's in the center and kind of balance it there. We have partial metering, which just, it takes it from a larger area than that. Very similar to like different focusing sizes where you're going from bigger to smaller. Very similar with the metering, just less options. Spot metering is as specific as you can get. So I like to keep it on spot metering myself. And then we have like flicker on and off when it comes to flicker detection, when it comes to taking pictures or shooting video. You have your white balance again. That was set to the shortcut button up on top. We have your picture style, which I like to keep in auto, but you have like standard, portrait, landscape, vivid colors, you know, so it basically changes the color output, how it displays those colors and contrasts and all of that in the picture style. I just like to keep it on auto generally. You have your auto lighting optimizer. Wouldn't worry about this right away. It's not something that you'll regularly change. And then we have your cropping aspect ratio. So I'm using the full here. Typically people will use the full or 4:3 to have that ratio. It's going to be the most common ratio. 1:1 is going to be for Instagram. And then 12:9 is going to be like widescreen, like your living room television, which is typically a widescreen television. Then we have, again, our another adjustment here, along with our set button, which we can set in our tracking point if we'd like to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and go over the menu. This is probably the most comprehensive part of the camera. Now, keep in mind when we go over the menu here, which we're going to start on number 1, yes, this is fully touchscreen, which is pretty awesome. I'm not going to go through every single aspect of the menu. I'm going to go through the most important parts that you may find that you want to change. There are going to be quite a few things in here that you don't understand right away, that are going to be too much for me to get into because there are too few people that need to know what it is. So if there are any questions about the menu, if I don't cover something enough, or if you see me kind of skip over it and you have questions, please let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to answer any of those. Plus, keep in mind, a lot of these, as you saw in the quick menu with that shortcut button, there will be a lot of repetition. So you may find that I'll just skip over it because we've already gone over it. Also keep in mind, you should be able to customize your quick menu along with any of your customization buttons, like the function button on top, and we'll get to that as well. So starting with the first tab here, we got our camera tab. This is going to be for picture taking or video taking. Our image quality here that we can change, RAW, JPEG, whatnot. Also the cropping aspect ratio, also found in the quick menu. We have our exposure compensation. So you can also change this on the shooting screen, as you saw right down here. If you just click that, it'll allow you to go -1, +1. That's going to allow you to make the scene a little bit brighter, a little bit darker, depending on the situation that you're in. You can also change in the menu here, of course. Now, like I was saying when we were going over ISO, I like to set a limit. So I'll set the ISO on auto because, like you see my sample pictures, you can see that I was dealing with lights on the tree, but a rather darker foreground because naturally those lights are fairly bright in the Christmas tree. So setting your ISO to auto and then setting a range, because the range on this camera is pretty substantial. As you can see, if we go to maximum, you can actually go up to 204,800, which is a little much that I wanted to go to. So I set mine to 6,400. That way I don't get any noise, and even if I did on the R6 here, it's going to be less so than on the R5 because of that megapixel rating. So there is a benefit to getting less megapixels, so do keep that in mind. We have your high dynamic range settings, your auto lighting optimizer, your highlight tone priority. I mean, you're really not going to mess with these too much. White balance, we've already gone over that. You also can do a custom white balance bracketing if you'd like to try that out. Keep your color space on sRGB. It's going to be lined up with the majority of programs and printers. Picture style, again, we went over that in the quick menu. You can adjust your clarity if you would like. Lens aberration correction, typically wouldn't worry about that too much either. We have the long exposure noise reduction. Personally, I like to have this off because I like to have the control to do that in Lightroom. That's just me. We have your high ISO speed noise reduction. Keep that on average. Dust delete data. You have your multiple exposures if you want to do that. Your high dynamic range mode if you'd like to turn that on. Focus bracketing. We have your interval timer, your bulb timer, your shutter mode to use that electronic first curtain, or you can also do your mechanical or just electric. And keep in mind, maximum continuous shooting speed is approximately 20 shots per second regardless of this setting, so keep that in mind. We have release shutter without card. I have this off because for me, I tend to get everything else ready, so lights, camera, strap, but I typically forget to put an SD card in sometimes. So with this, when I have it set to off and I turn the camera on to test things out, it'll let me know that, hey, there's no card in the camera. And that way it gives me a small reminder to put one in, versus if you have this turned on, it'll allow you to go around, take pictures, and then you go and push your play button and go, sorry, there wasn't a card in the camera, so I didn't save any of those, which is always really disappointing. You have your image stabilizer mode. So this does have in-body stabilization, so does the R5. So again, if you're putting this on a tripod, don't only turn it off on the lens, but also turn it off in camera as well, because when the stabilizer is looking for that shake, it can cause shake. So definitely something to keep in mind, kind of overcompensates. You have the touch shutter, which just means if you touch the screen to focus anywhere, it'll also take the picture. I'm not a fan of that, but it can definitely be helpful in uncomfortable situations. If you're trying to take a close picture of a flower on the ground, you don't want to like peer through or push your shutter button, you just tap the screen. It makes things very easy. We have image review, how long the picture will pop up for after you've taken the picture. High-speed display. We have the metering timer, the different shooting info displays, your viewfinder display format, how you would like to arrange that. You know, a lot of customization here. And then we have like movie record quality. I'm not using the 4K in this for the sample footage. I'm using HD, mainly because my current camera that's recording my walkthroughs only tops out at HD at the moment until I can afford a camera that can do 4K. So naturally I want it to match throughout all cameras I'm using. So 60 frames at HD is what I'm using now, but it can do 4K at 60 frames. We have also the ISO speed settings here, very similar to what we did for the photos. You have sound recording. You know, you can set that to auto. You can change the record level, wind filter, that type of thing. And then you can actually turn the shutter button function for movies when it comes to being in that video mode if you would like. And our next tab here is going to be our autofocus tab. This one I find that I get the lost most in. but you know, it is a tab that offers a lot of functions. So you have your autofocus operation. Again, you have that one shot versus servo, which is not only the quick menu, but your function button up on top. Autofocus method, where the camera's focusing. Again, either this button or your quick menu button. You can also find that. Subject to detect, you can program people, animals, or no priority at all. Because I'm taking pictures of a person today, I'm going to leave it on people, and it should be able to detect that, but it'll also be able to detect their eyes, which is pretty awesome as well. Continuous autofocus, I'm going to go ahead and keep that enabled. Movie servo autofocus, definitely want that. That way it focuses as I move. Touch and drag autofocus settings. You have your focus mode. This is where you're going to change it from autofocus to manual focus. For me, this is a huge pain in the butt, but we're going to talk about this tab last, which can make things much easier for you if you need to find that a little bit easier than going to second tab, second page, if it's not on your lens already. You have manual focus peaking settings. I like to have this on, and I am going to make the color blue. This is going to allow me to manually focus, and it's going to show me what's in focus by outlining it in blue, yellow, or red. So that is going to be totally up to you if you would like that on and what color you would like. We have your focus guide. If you would like to have that, I'm going to go ahead and have that on, because for me, I don't know about you guys, but I'll manually focus with the camera and go, that looks great. And I'll put it on my computer where it's a bigger screen. I'm like, oh, that wasn't in focus at all. So as much assistance as I can get is what I like. I like to have that autofocus assist beam firing. That's that LED we talked about in the front of the camera. Then on page 3, we have different servo autofocus settings here. It's a very highly customizable option here. So I would read through that, see what works best for you when you're ready to kind of tackle that. We have lens electronic manual focus. We have one-shot autofocus release, like priority. It's a lot of different customization that you may touch very rarely. Lens drive when autofocus impossible, limit autofocus methods. So autofocus method selection control is programmed to that function button up on top. You have your initial servo points for the face, so you can do auto on that or set it to specifics. I'm just going to leave it on auto. Your focus ring rotation for closer or farther away. If you wanted to adjust that, personally, I'm just going to do what the camera does and adjust myself to that. You have your RF lens manual focus ring sensitivity, so if you wanted to adjust the sensitivity on that. And then we have our playback tab here. As you can see, that symbol does match our playback button. So this is for pictures you have already taken. You can protect images, erase images, rotate, rate them, very similar to here. You can do a photo book setup. You can do raw image processing in camera. You can resize, you can crop, you can do a slideshow if you're hooking your camera up via HDMI. Change how many images you jump to when you do one of these adjust dials when you're looking at them. Again, these are just for pictures that you've already taken pictures of. And then of course you have HDMI, HDR output if you want to do that. And then our next tab here, our fourth tab, that's going to be everything to do with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So for me, I like to keep my airplane mode on to help save battery a little bit, because right now I don't plan on doing any transferring via the Canon app, but if you were, you can download the Canon app on your phone. You would go to Wi-Fi settings and you would connect it to your phone. The nickname here is EOS R6, along with some letters and numbers. You can change this, by the way, to Heather's camera, or well, I don't expect you to name it Heather's camera if your name's not Heather. But you can connect the camera to your phone and transfer images. Right now, I don't know if they have the ability to transfer video. I don't believe so due to the large video sizes, but you can definitely do that for JPEGs. It does not transfer RAW at the moment, so it is something to keep in mind as well. And then you can reset communication settings as well if you're having trouble with the Wi-Fi. We do have our next tab here, the little wrench. This is just going to be general settings. So you have your record function, you have your file numbering if you want that continuous. I recommend keeping it on continuous. We have your file name, Formatting your card. This is something I always like to go over with every walkthrough, because no matter how long you've been using your camera, I still find people that have been shooting for years that don't realize what formatting your card means. The importance of formatting your card and why it's there is what this does is it permanently deletes all data off the card. And the reason you'd want to do that instead of using the trash can is because it permanently erases all data and gives you a fresh start. So you'd want to make sure that your pictures are backed up to your computer properly, backed up to a cloud system, backed up to an external hard drive, whatever you need before formatting your card to go on your next job. What the trash can button does is it deletes the visible file but leaves that backup data on the card. So when you just keep deleting with the trash can button or deleting from your computer over and over again, it's not deleting that backup data, it's just making it overwritable, and that can cause corruption. It can cause your card to lock up, and then you lose future images, which we want to avoid. So every now and then when you put your card in, you go, you know, it's been a couple months since I formatted it, I needed to give it a fresh start, go ahead and format your card. You can have auto rotate on, you can have auto rotate for video, which is pretty great. Adjust your time and date, your language, your video system, the help text, if you want the beep to be on or off, the headphone volume if you're using headphones to check your audio, power saving mode, eco mode. You have a screen viewfinder display, your screen brightness, your viewfinder brightness. We have HDMI resolution, your touch control, if you want the shutter to go down at shutdown, sensor cleaning if that needs to be done, resetting your camera. So in case you're playing with any of these settings or any of the buttons on the outside of your camera, you go, okay, now it's doing something funny, no clue how to get it back to how it was. Best thing you can do is just go in, reset your camera. It's not going to hurt your pictures that you've taken, it just resets your settings currently to get you back where you need to be. Your custom shooting modes, C1 through C3 on your mode dial if you want to set those. Your battery info, copyright information, software. You have firmware here. Now, as far as I know, because this camera is brand new, I don't believe it has a firmware update yet, but keep an eye out for them. You never know. Our second to last tab here is going to be our customization tab. It's going to be where we customize quite a bit, where we can set certain increments and all sorts of little things here. You probably won't find that you're going to be in this very much. You may find that you're in this at the very beginning to set it to how you want to be and then not change it back. So you can change your exposure level increments, ISO speed setting increments. Typically those are by thirds. Anything with bracketing, your safety shift, you can do your auto exposure lock meter. I mean, all of these are going to be very technical. Personally, I would access the Canon manual for these to see all the options. You can change your control ring rotation. You can customize your buttons, customize your dials. So everything on the outside of the camera, you can customize to your own preference. Now, of course, that is going to be up to you. There's no right way to do that. This is just where you're going to find to set up your camera to be your camera. You can add cropping information, audio compression, release shutter without the lens if you're using an off-brand lens that maybe isn't recognized by the camera, something like that. And then you can clear all custom functions if needed. The last tab here is going to be your My Menu tab. This tab is going to be amazingly useful because very similar to the quick menu here, where you can quickly access the settings that you might regularly change, you can choose any settings from any of these tabs here, like, oh, I don't know, turning manual focus to autofocus and vice versa. You can set all that up to one tab, so you never have to go through all of this nonsense and all of these options here. You just go to My Menu and it's there. Very similar how you can go to Quick Menu and the settings that you need are right there. And all you have to do is go Add My Menu tab, and then you can add whatever you would like on there. Other than that, that pretty much sums up the R6. If you guys have any questions about this camera or the R5, please leave me a comment below. If you'd like to see certain lens comparisons, if you'd like to see other camera models, if you would like to see certain accessories, let me know in the comments below. Be sure to add them to my list. Thank you guys for watching. Keep your eye out for inspiration, and we'll see you next time, Shutterbugs. Bye.